Hi there. This is SP 5.2, Construct and Interpret Double Bar Graphs to Draw Conclusions. So construct means you're going to build them, you're going to make them on the computer or draw them by hand on a piece of paper. Interpret means you need to understand what they're actually telling you and maybe answer some questions about the graph. So the cool thing about bar graphs is we can collect some data. We can maybe have a survey or ask people or just go and observe things. And we collect all our data and we really don't know what it's telling us until we draw it out and see it in a bar graph, and then we have an aha moment where we can really see because that visual gives us a good picture of what's going on. So the indicators for this outcome, first one, compare the attributes, and that means what does it look like? What are the qualities? What do the sides look like? How tall is it? What numbers are they using? What are the labels? What are the axes? What are they measuring? So attributes is kind of like all of the different qualities that it has. So comparing the attributes and the purpose, why are we doing this double bar graph? And that is based upon situations and data that are meaningful to yourself, your family, or community. So we always have this outcome, or this indicator, sorry, in math. It has to be relevant to ourself, our family, or community, or it's kind of not worth doing. So we know that we can make double bar graphs about ourselves. Next one, creating double bar graphs without the use of technology. So you're going to have to draw it by hand, which is actually quite fun, and especially if you like art, it's kind of a cool thing to do. And again, it's based on some data that is relevant to you. You can come up with questions. So pose questions just means ask questions, and support answers. You'd have to have some proof to say this is why I got this answer. And you get those answers by looking at your graph. And the last one, you're going to solve problems related to the construction and interpretation of double bar graphs. So what kind of problems do we run into when we start making graphs? So that's construction. Interpretation is what is the graph telling us? So sometimes it's hard to tell what the graph is telling us depending on how well it's made. So we will get into that. Next slide. Here we have a double line graph. This was something we looked at in SP 5.1, and we said line graphs are pretty handy for comparing trends over time. Is the company growing? Is the company going downhill? Are we on the mend again? So it shows trends over time. And the reason I'm showing you this is a double line graph. Our outcome is talking about double bar graphs. So I wanted to just remind you that we've done double line graphs before. And all it's showing is two sets of data, one from company A, one from company B, and it's showing a trend in years and the profit that they're making in millions of dollars. So here are the bar graphs. We have a single bar graph here and a double one over here, and I'll explain the difference in just a minute. Let's look at our single bar graph. We have soccer, softball, basketball, and other, maybe gymnastics or some other sport in there, volleyball. So this is a very simple graph where they've asked a certain group of students to tell us what their favorite sport was. So 9 people picked soccer. They didn't put the 9 right here because they just wanted their chart to look a little cleaner. So they've gone up by increments of 2. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, all the way to the top there. But we know that if the soccer graph ends right here, that means 9. So sometimes you have to have a look at the side and see what number actually goes there. So how many people said they liked softball, the blue one? If you said 4, you are right. How many people said other, the yellow one? If you said 3, you are right. So 3 is hiding right there. 3 people liked other. So it's easy to read a single bar graph. So let's move over here to the double bar graph and see what the difference is there. So right away, you notice that instead of 1 bar, every chunk of data is showing at least 2 things. And what are those 2 things? Well, in this case, the yellow is talking about girls and the red is talking about boys. So they've split the data up into two subgroups, and they're showing now the number of sports, the number of students that like that sport, but they've split it into boys and girls. So how many boys liked basketball? So here's basketball, and boys is in the red. So how many reds for basketball? It's in between 4 and 6. So if you said 5, you are right. So you read a double bar graph the same way that you read a single bar graph. There's just more data. And there's my dog.